Hello, good evening. We're kicking things off with an executive session. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Executive session to discuss the acquisition or disposition of real estate of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city. Requested action to enter into an executive session pursuant to Maine Revised Statutes Annotated, Title I, Section 4056C, to discuss the acquisition or disposition of real estate of which the premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the city.
May I have a motion, please?
You may. So moved.
Councilor Chittum, second
Second.
by Councilor Najin. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Okay, Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Yes, we're heading into executive session. We will be back for the second workshop. I don't know when exactly that will be, so just stay tuned. Thank you. Hello, we're back, and we're here for our workshop. Director Roy, please kick us off.
So tonight, we're going to go over economic and community development, the canal ownership projects on page 29 of your book. The canal ownership project is a project for $500,000. This project is for structural and operational repairs and upgrades to a 175-year-old canal system. $300,000 will go for plug and fill upper A penstocks, and $200,000 will go for Mill 5 intakes, caps, structures, and repairs. Would you like to add anything to that project, Jeff?
This is we have various hydro stations around the canal system that used to power all the mills, which the city took over when we purchased the canals. So this is a FERC-required project to fill the penstocks at our upper A generating system. I don't have much more to say about it.
Do you have any questions on?
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you. Is there a deadline on these FERC requirements?
It was this year. We got an extension to 2028, so we have a little bit more time.
And this $500,000 in the LCIP for this year is one of a series of LCIP requests in the out years 26, 27, 28, 29 that would all go toward rehabilitating those historic canals, correct?
Right. There's lots of, it's 175 years old. There's lots of issues structurally to tackle. We've been trying to pick away piece by piece.
The LCIP is a 5-year plan, and every 5 years, I mean, all 5 years in the current plan, if my memory serves, have expenditures associated with the canals. Is it anticipated this is going to be a bow wave going forward? And if so, do you have any idea as to how long we'll be working on these canals?
I think the projects we have outlined in those 5 years are tackle the biggest issues. A lot of those penstocks, those large pipes that are rotting away. We've already repaired a lot of the dams and the control gates. So I would say the bulk of the major stuff will probably get finished by the end of the 5 years. But there's obviously going to be some continuing projects going forward.
Okay, thank you. Let's hope that 5 years worth of this expenditure will get us up to current standards for the canals. Thank you for your efforts.
Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the question I would have, if we did nothing, what would happen?
I'm not sure about the FERC portion. Dan Rodrigue out back there is the one that was communicating directly more with them.
Dan Rodrigue, Electrical Superintendent. I've been dealing with FERC. As it stands now, they've given us a time extension. We had these penstocks evaluated back in 2018. We were asked so we could decommission our hydro facility, which was the upper A at the time, as part of the purchase agreement. They required us to fill the penstocks as a safety condition for moving forward. So there were a number of additional departments of the government that came down. One was dam safety. The other one was FERC itself. They have different divisions. So before we could forfeit, or not forfeit, but close our agreement with FERC, we'd have to meet all the existing requirements, which was filling the penstocks. It's basically to make safe if anybody ever drives over it. It's not terrible now, but moving forward, we really need to fill those penstocks at some point.
Do they affect the water flow by
At
filling
this
them?
time, no. 2 of the penstocks have been capped and filled, but there are 2 remaining at the upper A hydro that need to be addressed. We just didn't have the funding to do it all at the initial push for it.
I guess where I'm going is, once we cap them, does it prevent the canals, which we hope in our future to use? I mean, how do we get the water in once you cap all your penstocks?
The penstocks are the tubes that go into the hydro generation facilities. If we capped all the penstocks, the water would essentially just flow from the upper canal. It would go over the Bates Weir, which is by Mill 5, and it would discharge at the end of the canal. It would stop water going through the Hill Mill and the Upper A, along with Mill 5.
All right, that's what I want to know, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Roy?
Thank you. Question I have for you is, if I'm reading this correctly, and maybe I'm not, is this going to create some new jobs for maybe the 5-year period?
New jobs as far as like
As far as
construction?
like, it says
work?
temporary wages and all that stuff, are we creating some jobs
Oh.
for people in the city, or is it just city workers that we're going to be?
Yeah, that's estimated time for city workers to mow the grass and keep general upkeep of the canals.
Okay, so it's not going to be temporary work for other people in creating jobs for a 5-year period?
Yeah,
Temporary,
it would be temporary, like summer
Okay.
help,
okay.
I think
All
is
right.
the
Thank
intent of that.
Okay.
Next is the Riverfront Island implementation at $150,000. Total project is $5,200,000. 5.08 is coming from HUD Department. This will be Beach Street Extension, Continental Riverwalk amenities and landscaping, Community Pavilion, and a pilot for a project for Oxford Street overhangs and Lower Canal steps. Would you like to add anything?
I'm just at the 150,000 that is the direct request for this year goes along with the previous congressional directed spending project on the Riverwalk. That was budgeted over 2 years ago. Costs have gone up. We'd like to be able to use that to add more plantings and amenities, benches, that type of thing along the path, but it could end up being put towards the base project if construction estimate ends up too high, which hasn't been designed yet.
Questions?
I just want to note as well, Mayor and Council, the city staff that are sitting here and predate myself have been very successful going after earmark funding from Congress. Senator Collins, as chair of the Appropriations Committee, has been really helpful in securing some of these funds. Congressman Golden secured one of the earmarks as well, the Beach Street extension. Senator Collins was instrumental in the Community Pavilion, the pilot project. Senator King has been supportive of these projects as well, and so it's worth noting that for the $150,000 that is being requested of city funds, that's going to help draw down over $5 million, which is a fairly good deal, I think, for Lewiston taxpayers.
I agree, Director. Further comments, questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Najin.
Only to note that we're very appreciative of our representatives in Congress for this work, absolutely, and that getting this development done down in the Riverfront Island master plan section is the future of the city. So I think it's incredibly important for our economic base and the look and feel of the city. So,
Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. So you're saying the $5 million's already been appropriated? So we have the money available to do what we want to do?
It's a process, but we have the award letter. It's been awarded,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Might be a few forms to fill out or something, you know.
Any other questions? So we will move to Public Works Open Spaces and ask that Director Gagne and Deputy Director Megan Bates Franklin Pastors is on page 82 of your book. This is a project that is split between the city and the school for Franklin Pastors Athletic Complex security fences for $940,550. I won't go over all the whole slide, because there's pictures in your PDF that you got of the slides showing the damage and the area that this would cover. So I don't know if you have questions for Director Gagnon or Deputy Director Megan or Bill Grant from the school.
Councilor Chittum.
Yeah, I do. What is the cost to repair the damage on an annualized basis? Ballpark? Somebody has an answer.
Well, one of you, please.
I think a lot is manpower and like cleaning up the rocks and things like you saw of that. But I would have to go back and get what the annual is, and I believe that's a split cost between the city and the schools on like some of those pictures that you're seeing up on the screen right now of those boxes being replaced, so.
I do have concerns about spending $1 million without knowing what it is that we're avoiding in terms of cost. I also frankly have concerns about further isolating our community from the fields that were designed and intended for the community to use. It seems to me that putting an additional 4 feet on top of the 6-foot chain link fence with a curved top to discourage climbing is easily defeated with some bolt clippers, and someone who's dedicated and insistent on gaining access to these areas is going to do so despite the fact that we've spent $1 million to try and prevent them. I'm very leery about this. I think it sends the wrong message. And from a financial standpoint, I'd like to know just what sort of costs we're saving by spending $1 million. Thank you.
Councilor Najin.
Just as a quick question, and I think this is more directed towards administration, but our parking garages, we have security that we pay $160,000 a year. Is that correct for the garages?
We don't pay 160. I think it's closer to 85, maybe 90, that they do all our parking garages.
All of them?
And they don't do it 24/7, but there is a staggered schedule that they patrol.
One of the considerations with the fence is it's a passive item, right? And so ultimately, it's not going to deter somebody who decides to go around it. And one of the concepts that I have is like, you know, that 10-foot security fence looks like a prison yard in a way. So it's vandalism can't happen on our public property. It just there's too much, especially at the schools. But I'm just wondering if we've explored other options as opposed to just putting the fence up. So.
Councilor Glant.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to agree with my two other councilors. What about cameras? I mean, you know, we just looked at a camera recently at the Finance Committee. The police department's buying that they can wheel around with a blue light that blinks and lets people know something's there. You know, they're $40,000 or $50,000. You know, 3 or 4 cameras maybe put in specific areas might be a good start to look at what's going on over there. I know we get costs for the cleanup, but that way maybe we at least can catch the individuals who are doing these things. And I think a lot of people who are doing these are doing it because it's unseen. You know, if you have a blinking light, they put one over there by McDonald's and they got rid of their whole homeless problem almost immediately. Because they have problems with people getting into people's cars or going in or people leaving safely. It might be more economical to initially try something like that, you know, than spending $1 million for fencing that looks like a prison, as he stated. You know, we're not trying to lock the kids in or necessarily lock the kids up, but it doesn't have a good feel, quite frankly. Thank you.
Administrator O'Malley, didn't we hire a community person last year, a community position? That was going to build a community, develop volunteers, a schedule, etc. Am I the only one that remembers that?
Yes,
Megan
that,
Bates?
that
Yes.
did happen, and the issue is that obviously that employee is not there 24/7, and a lot of this is occurring, outside those hours.
So is that person still employed by the city?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, and I realize that this person was, I mean, I never envisioned this person to be like, camped out there 24/7, but they were going to create community, get a volunteer program, et cetera. I guess it'd be great to know where that is.
Hi, I'm Nicole Welch. I'm the Recreation Director. So the position you're referring to is a community sports aide. That position was filled through the middle of September, and that person left. They went to pursue other employment opportunities. The position sat vacant for about 3.5 months. We now have Stefan Samba is our new community sports aide. Right now, there's snow on the ground, so there's not a heck of a lot to do outside. But right now, just to give you an idea of what they're doing, tonight we kicked off our free Armory Hoops League, which has 12 teams from Tree Street Boys and Girls Club, Root Cellar, and the Lewiston Recreation Department. So that's a free league that all of us are working together to create every year. So those collaborations and community volunteers, that is all run by that position. We also have our After School at the Armory program, which is a free 2-day-a-week drop-in program for kids in grades 7 through 12. We're also starting a free family drop-in gym at the Armory on Friday afternoons. So that's kind of our current winter plan. Right now, we're getting ready to release our spring and summer brochure. And for this summer, we are planning on bringing back in the free drop-in turf time. Last year, we had about 80 to 90 hours of free structured soccer athletic programming happening on the turf from Tuesday to Saturdays. It was a fairly consistent group. They go out, they run around for 2 or 3 hours, and the idea behind that program was to provide guidance, provide some mentorship, and we also leveraged some community relationships for that as well. We didn't get a chance to do any kind of cleanup. We're hoping to be able to do one this coming spring. And yeah, so that's kind of update on the position, but it is alive and well, so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Najin, did you have something?
It's just back on the same point that the fence, it's a good deal of money to go into the capital improvement piece when there's a lot of other things that we're looking at, and the fence is passive, and so like at the end of the day, just to repeat the fields there, we rent them out, right? People come and have tournaments here. It is, I think they're a community resource as well as a city resource. And like the fences are a physical deterrent in a way, but like they're not going to catch somebody. You know what I mean? Like what needs to happen is we need enforcement, and I don't know if that can sit in the capital improvement plan, but it's like how much does the groundskeeper from The Simpsons cost in order to like physically be on the grounds to catch somebody actually vandalizing the space, because that's what needs to stop happening.
I think that this was a recommendation that came from a staff working group that involved high school leadership, PW leadership, as well as admin leadership. So there was some discussion about that, and looking at having staff there during events to support Lewiston High School, because right now it's their staff, it's their coach, it's their rec director, it's their, they don't have additional staff. Public Works goes during our normal work hours and preps a lot of the field, cleans up a lot of the field, but the one picture with the crushed rock thrown all over the turf, that's like a manual cleanup. We got to get in there with some proper brooms. It's not a metallic. We're doing prep for between every game, so adding this to it is just something that was an idea that came up, and that's why in the CIP. So other options that you suggested, I think we'll definitely consider and put some dollars to and come back to you with.
We definitely understand. Sorry, did you have something else, Councilor? We definitely understand that vandalism is happening, and we are definitely not okay with this. I want to continue to explore what the community sports aid, there we go, community sports aid can do to help build community volunteers, you know, some a mentorship for kids in the area. I think this is gonna, we're gonna get a lot of dividends from that rather than a chain link fence.
Yep.
Further comments or questions from the council? Next up.
Next is the solid waste facility push wall and repair, which can be found on page 85 of your book. This is for $170,000. The structure is 35 years old. The loader uses the structure 5 to 10 times per day, 6 days per week to get material off the ground. The impact to the facility if the push wall fails is a danger to the equipment operator if the walls collapse. A collapse would impact the paved road above the structure, inconvenience to residents and commercial users using the top level of the drop-off, the inability to scrape out roll-off cans, and more costly to repair a collapsed wall, roof, and road than to do the repairs. Wanna add anything or-
Anything you want to add, Director Gagne?
This, we're using this area as part of the initial facility that was built, the shredder facility, I think in the mid-'80s. So we've added protective plates, this just worn out. So with other parts of the building used by Casella and our recycling areas, this area is critical to moving containers, getting through materials, so that's why the request is before you.
Councilor Niji.
Has this been on the LCIP before?
I would have to look back, I believe it has.
I believe it was on last year and it was pushed.
Thanks.
Pushed.
Further questions? Councilor Glant, did you have something?
No, I was gonna say, he wants us to pull it.
Please use your mic.
I was saying he wants us to pull it now, pull it back in.
Councilor Roy, yes.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this question because I was debating on it. So looking at that wall that we had before, is there a way to put a concrete barrier before that wall instead of spending $170,000? I mean, could we just put a barrier there to push against?
That's pretty much what we're looking to do is we can look at putting jersey barricades, but I think you see the steel plates all along the side, there's been enough deterioration that we're worried about the structural integrity of that. But we can look at doing a different option. Yep. Come back with a price.
I mean, not that $170,000. I mean, I don't want to spend the money if we don't have to spend
Yep.
the money.
John Kaczynski, who operates this, we'll get with him tomorrow and see if we can't do a revised number.
Next is the traffic signal upgrades for $250,000 on page 86. This will replace Ash Street at Bates intersection. The intersection was identified 2 years ago as a critical structure support base issue. Given the event of the new engineering standards, base are now much larger and more costly to install. The plan is to update the masts and the arms at the same time. The base erode due to the elements may break and the mast could fall. While temporary measures could be employed, an emergency repair would be far more expensive. And I don't know, we do have the electrical superintendent, Dan Rodriguez. I don't know if he would like to add anything additional to this?
No, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
No question?
I think we're good.
Okay. So next is the streetlight upgrades for $500,000. Streetlight switch gears was installed back in 1986 and was estimated to have a 25 life-year span. While state-of-the-art at the time, the unit has been reliable but not without occasional fails. This unit has reached the obsolete, making repairs more difficult due to the lack of parts available. The electrical industry is still feeling the effects of the supply and chain issue, and these units are still 18 to 24 months out. A failure could cause approximately 180 luminant lights, mainly in the downtown area. A 1-day or 2-day outage could be acceptable. However, lighting is important for security for the public. The cost of the public confidence is far greater than the monetary costs. The estimate cost to replace is $300,000, which was requested last budget cycle and was cut.
Am I to understand that it's gone up $200,000?
Correct.
I see.
If I could, so at this point, we're trying to get some numbers, working with an electrical engineer. My goal is try to at least get an order in. So I'm trying to figure out, do we need to put a deposit, pay 50%, pay 100 up front? If we can stay this cost off and get something ordered, then it's on its way and we can incur these costs in 18 months when it gets delivered. So that's one option we're looking at right now. I think the numbers that were quoted, we're looking at 30% of close to 4,000 lights. So we are still mapping our grid, mapping our network. We've come up with some options to try to emergency feed different areas if that were to go out. We've had another switchgear that Main Street Pump Station is similar for a generator and a master switch in that pump station. It's not like a residential. We're talking about large wiring with an electrical contractor coming in to do this work, so.
Can I just correct? There is a second page, so it hasn't gone up 200,000. There's two different projects. The 200,000 increase would be for the streetlight circuit to be replaced. That was from 1938.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to elaborate and ask Superintendent Rodrigue to correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're talking about is for the switchgear, this is the relays and the mechanisms that power and depower the circuit. That's the $300,000 project.
That is correct.
The $200,000 project, making a total of $500,000, is actually the wiring in the streets, some of which has been identified with multiple splices. And it was curious because I was reading through saying if more than 3 splices are seen, it's recommended to be repaired or replaced. Well, every time you replace a circuit, you end up with 2 splices anyway. So I was glad to see that they said if it's more than 3, then we ought to consider replacing that. So just to clarify, the first $300,000 is to replace the switchgear, the operating relays and mechanisms that power the circuits, and the second $200,000 is to replace the wires overhead and underground themselves. Is that correct?
It's the wiring and the hardware associated with it. That's correct. So cross arms, insulators, guy wires, that sort of thing, but yes.
And this cost includes close-up inspection of some of the old glass insulators?
This will, and my hope was to replace the glass insulators and the wooden cross arms with fiber cross arms and fiber insulators as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So on your last slide, you'll see originally we had 2 Maine Department of Transportation projects that we were requesting. Those, after a meeting with the Maine Department of Transportation, have been pushed off to fiscal year '27. So those numbers for the 80% have changed due to that decrease. We are now over the limit, 7.8 million.
Which is what percent? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please continue, Councilor Chittum.
Thank you. Director Roy, which is what percentage would that be? If we funded all of these requests in 7.8 million in excess of the 80% limit, what percentage would that take us to? 120, 130%?
It's up on it's over 122%.
Ah, right in front of my eyes. Thank you so much.
Anything further, Director Roy?
No, any other questions?
Director Gagne, did you have anything?
Nope, I think we're good.
Questions or comments from the council? Councilor Najin, yes.
I'll have a couple of questions, but I think I'm going to email them, just because I think they're a little bit more technical, and we got folks waiting, so. Thank you.
Thank you
you.
both so much. Thank you, Deputy Director Bates and Superintendent Rodrigue. Yes, we're a bit behind our time, but we are going to start a council meeting, hopefully momentarily. We'll be back.
Director Gagne? Real quick, what were the
Hello and welcome to our Tuesday evening council meeting. We're joined here by the Lewiston High School cheerleaders. We have one of the team captains here, Aubrey, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And yes, okay. So we have the winners, Lewiston High School cheerleaders, the winners of the Class A Main Principals Association. They are state cheerleading championships on February 8, 2025. Please give them a huge round of applause. And I have here, this is the third win in the last 4 years. Wow. Look at that. And then are we competing, on March 22, the New England Spirit Championships in Mass? All right, well, good luck. All right, we have a presentation. If you can all come up, that'd be great. Just right here. Yeah. Coach Torrey, if you could please join us. So in recognition of their achievement, I have a proclamation here, and here we go. Whereas Lewiston High School cheerleading team won the Class A Main Principals Association State Cheerleading Championships for the third time in 4 years on February 8, 2025, and whereas their outstanding performance demonstrates their dedication and months of training, teamwork, and perseverance, and whereas to compete in the championships, the cheerleaders must also remain in good standing with their grades at Lewiston High School, showing dedication not only to their sport, but to their education as well. And whereas the championship winning team includes Marina Anderson, Phoenix Bullio, Isabella Caldera, Ashley Cloutier, Andrea Duval, Fiona Hutchinson, Adeline Martin, Ella Mercer, Emma Mills, Emily O'Donnell, Mila Physic, Paige Taylor, and Aubrey Wood. Huge round of applause for them all. Whereas we now look forward to the team representing Lewiston in the co-ed division at the March 22, 2025 New England Spirit Championships in Massachusetts. Now therefore, I, Carl L. Shalene, Mayor of Lewiston, Maine, do hereby proclaim March 4th, 2025 Lewiston High School Class A Cheer Champions Day within the city of Lewiston in tribute to the team's award-winning season and for making our city proud. Thank you so much.
Angie, do you want to lower the mics so they don't get in the way?
Yes, yes, and, okay, you're with me? Okay.
So rabbit ears
Ready?
are good.
Behind me? 3, 2, 1. Hold on, 3, 2, 1. Over here, you're good. Very good. Okay.
Congratulations to you all.
Congratulations.
Great job.
Nice job.
I have one for each of you.
Thank you so much. Are these yours? Trying to run on those. That extra, okay.
Coach Torrey.
Thank you.
Get the humor. Did you ever see the man show? Women jumping on trampolines.
Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to begin.
Thank you. All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Counselor of Ward 5.
And I understand we have minutes.
Yes, the minutes of the February 18th meeting.
May I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Counselor Najin?
Second.
Second by Counselor Gallant. And Was there an edit to the minutes, or?
The clerk and I have discussed the edit to the minutes, and it's been taken care of.
Excellent. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
I'm sorry, yes, yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Chittum. We are now up to public comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record, and please indicate if you're a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for the City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office.
Matthew Agron, Ward 4. Unfortunately, we still have issues with violence in this city, and it's not limited to one area or any one racial background, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. I'd like to thank the Lewiston PD and the Lewiston Public Schools for hosting the 2 safety information sessions about our youth with the focus on guns and substance use challenges and what signs and words the parents need to look out for. Do you know that the Lewiston PD took 71 illegal firearms off the streets last year? But our schools and our law enforcement can't solve all these problems themselves. Nope, it requires all of us to be involved. Councillor Soul, your push to revise the curfew was a good step. It provided the Chief, St. Pierre, and the Lewiston PD with another tool they can use. Mayor Shaleen, I hope to hear that your advisory committee on community safety will be operational again ASAP. I know the schools are looking up at setting up their own ad hoc committee on violence in the schools. We need our nonprofits who are working with these kids, Lewiston and Maine law enforcement agencies, and our various federal agencies, the state of Maine's justice system, and yes, the general public. If you see something off or wrong, say something. Share your videos with Lewiston PD if they ask for them. But do you know who we really need involved? Our parents and guardians. We can no longer be the parents of my generation, who really had to be reminded by a PSA. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? I'll be honest, my kid thought this was just a meme from The Simpsons until he stumbled over one of the ads on YouTube and was shocked it was real. Nope, we now need to be fully involved in our kids' lives. We need to know who they're off with, where they're going, their ETA back home, and what they're doing as well as what's going on with them on social media. It's a lot, but we need to do it, for the kids are the future of this world. Who doesn't want them to have a more successful life? I want them all to have a fair chance at making their own successful life that they choose for themselves. We need to keep this city safe, because that's what makes people feel free to come out to our businesses. We all have friends and family and coworkers who have said, yep, I live in the downtown area, and I've heard rounds fired or come along where there have been shootings. We have kids who are now being regularly exposed to shootings as a common everyday thing. I ask, how long will it be before we have innocent victims hit and possibly killed by rounds fired by people who have no care where the rounds are going and about human life?
Further public comment?
Louise Sampson, Ward 5. This is an easy one, I hope. I've had a lot of my friends and family ask if I know or can I find out when Luigi's is going to reopen. I mean, it's been on my phone. It was December 1st, and it was January 1st. Now it's March 4th, and nothing is happening. I know they've redone everything. Is it due to permits or codes? If that's the case, I mean, is there anything that can be done to get them to do it, please? Oh, one more thing. Do we know any more about Lewiston Housing Authority and construction Martell School, Mr. Gallant.
Administrator O'Malley, if you can please give, I'm sorry, your name again? Louise, thank you. If you can please give Louise Simpson my card so I can follow up with her. Further public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Holly Kerr, and Honorable Councilman. My realtor assured me that it would be appropriate to address the council at this point. This is my first meeting, so I hope I'm not crossing any lines. My sister and I did submit an offer for property on No Name Pond Road. We did.
Is this, 1 second, is this on the agenda here, item number 4, Administrator O'Malley?
Yeah, if you're speaking about 170, 176 No Name Pond Road, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an agenda item, and then you can
Oh.
address it at that time.
Oh, okay.
So it's number 4, so it should be coming up shortly.
I'll see you then.
Okay.
Just stay tuned. We will get to number 4 eventually here. Further public comment? Public comment is now closed. Item number 1, Madam Clerk.
Item number 1, public hearing on a renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Cage, 97 Ash Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Cage, 97 Ash Street.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Glant, second by Councilor Chittum. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing and first passage for amendments to the solid waste ordinance regarding curbside collection of solid waste for condominiums along city rights-of-way. Requested action that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, Solid Waste, Article 1 in general, Section 62-11, definitions, receive first passage by a roll call vote and to continue the public hearing to the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Chittum.
Second.
Second by Councilor Najin. Director Gagne, Deputy Director Bates, please kick us off.
We've attended several workshops, discussed this, and with your guidance, I think we're here tonight to do first passage. So unless you have anything else to add or any questions, we're here to address those.
Councilor Roy, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yep. My question would be, last time we were here, did we discuss the increase at all, like from the 170 to 310? Is there a reason why we jumped up with that?
So I think the plan would be to have first read tonight, and then March 18th, we would bring back the actual policy increase.
Okay.
But if you want to discuss that, we're here.
I'm just making light of it right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment under Section 6211 definitions. The proposal is to strike the term condominiums from commercial activity. I'm in favor of that as long as we understand that condominiums are residential condominiums. There are also business condominiums. And I would move then that we amend definition 7 by inserting the word business in front of condominiums, and that we not strike condominiums in total from that definition. I'm comfortable with moving the residential into its own definition, but I do not want to exclude commercial condominiums from commercial activity.
Do we have a, yes, Councilor Najin.
Just as a point of clarity, the definition for commercial is 3 units non-owner occupied or above. And so the question is, when you refer to a business condominium, what is that?
A business condominium is where businesses, instead of residences, cooperate and collaborate on a mutual agglomeration of, they own the halls, they have their shares, secretarial offices, that sort of thing, but it's a business, not a residence. It is still a condominium association. And that's what we certainly want to include those as commercial activities.
This is where it gets kind of dicey, I think, with our definition of what commercial and residential is, because housing is, we classify it as commercial a lot of times, right? And that's where it gets confusing. But I agree with you in being clear on this concerning the business condominiums, because it's not housing, you're right. Yeah, I'm good with that.
That's why the motion was to use the term business condominium.
Yeah, so I'm seconding
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, did you get all that?
Sure, if I could just clarify, if I could, Mr. Mayor. So just for confirmation, it's just to insert the word business in front of the word condominiums and to keep condominiums, not strike it.
You said it much more succinctly than I, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councilor Chittum.
Discussion on this proposed amendment. Yes, Councilor Chittum.
Yes, I do have some other issues. As I started digging into this, I discovered that there is all kinds of complexity in our solid waste ordinance.
Well, at this point,
And I am going to be talking specifically to the amendment in front of us. There is a provision that residential condominiums must be located on a public way rather than a private way. And that opened the door to me to understand, or try to understand, why equal units, one on a public way and one on a private way, would be treated differently under the code. So I'm happy with this amendment. I'm happy with the first reading on this ordinance, but I do think that we ought to take a very hard look at the way that not only our solid waste collection contract, which is already signed and executed, has been presented, but also in the manner in which our solid waste is collected and how we differentiate among the various entities within the city of Lewiston. So that's a request for an ongoing council activity.
Further comments or questions about the proposed amendment? Your thoughts, staff?
I think the amendment works for the intent and what we discussed previously, and questions that we've had from the public as well.
Thank you. We're now going to public comment for this amendment.
I'll come back when he comes back.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. I'm Amy Smith. I live in downtown Lewiston at 122 Bartlett Street. And tonight's ordinance change, I'm very much in support of. I think it's great. It's all about eligibility for who can get curbside trash pickup. So this is, I think, a really important thing to do. But in digging into this, like Councilor Chittum and Councilor Najin, our solid waste policy versus our ordinances, it's two documents. Ordinance is 18 pages of legal definitions and laws, et cetera. The policy is basically 2 pages of specific guidelines for programs that happen, and the two just do not agree with each other. There's a ton of inconsistencies in between the two, so I would just agree that we really need to sit down and comb through it and make sure those two documents are in agreement with each other, and that the documents express what our desires are for how it should work, and then are very, very specific about how the programs work. So there's eligibility, there's what's included in property taxes, what's not included. If it's not included in property taxes, what is the right fee to charge? So there's a lot of intricacies, so I appreciate the idea of coming up with a task force or something along those lines that would let us dig into it and then make sure that we've got something that's easy to understand and does what we want it to do for the downtown and the rest of the city. Thanks.
Public comment is now closed for this amendment. Further questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Glant.
Thank you. A little clarity, I guess. I see you scratch condominiums and he wants to put business in, but the line up here says structures used for commercial or business, which would apply simply by just taking out the unstriked line. You wouldn't have to add business in front of it, because doesn't it say that up there in the very last line? Now, am I missing something? You'd apply either of those words in front of condominium? Would that be correct?
if I may.
Councillor Glant, yes, or Councillor Nagy.
I think the issue is that residential, the way we define residential is 3 units owner occupied or below. Commercial is 3 units non-owner occupied or above. So the challenge is the way that we define our housing. So ultimately, a 4-unit building is a commercial building, even though it's a residence. And I think that's where that language piece that Councillor Chittum is bringing forward is relevant.
Go ahead.
Councillor Chittum.
Actually, Councillor Sol had her hand up first.
Well, Councillor Chittum, you've been recognized. We will get to other councillors after you.
I appreciate Councillor Glant's concerns. I think we have to, and I don't know the answer to this, I think we have to understand where the term commercial activity is used in these 11 pages of solid waste before we can decide whether or not to include business condominiums. I think adding business condominiums makes sense, but one of the activities that we need to do is understand how we're using these words throughout the entire document. What happens over time is that various councils take action, they pick away at, they change this word, they change this paragraph, and before you know it, you have a lot of inconsistencies that are buried in there. So how do we use the term commercial activity? Let's find that out. That's beyond tonight's vote, and I would hope that we can vote passage on this amendment. Thank you.
That's fine.
Councillor Sol, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. How do you determine who is charged for pickup? Is it, because I'm assuming commercial pays taxes as well as residential. So how do you determine who pays for their pickup?
Go for it.
So residential, single-family residential, duplexes, and 3-unit owner-occupied do not get charged. It's part of their taxes.
Okay.
If it is a 3-unit, but the owner is not occupying it, or larger, like a 4-unit and up, they can be part of a program, a multi-unit apartment collection program, and they're charged.
Okay.
But was that also part of the 2003 grandfathering?
It began in 2003, and
Right.
prior to 2000, the reason why the program began, it was to try to wean some of the apartments off collection because of the cost. So that started in 2003.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Glant, did you have something?
What about 2 units,
A duplex is considered a residential.
even if the owner's not there?
That's correct.
So
So-
I could
so
own,
a
I could own,
3-unit
go ahead.
So a 3-unit owner-occupied is kind of like a duplex.
I guess my question would be, if I own 6 duplexes in town, I'm not paying any taxes, have my trash picked up, and my rent's coming directly to me. Doesn't seem fair, quite frankly. I would think that a duplex should also apply. I mean, I simply could turn my upstairs of my house into a duplex, and I can, it doesn't make sense. I guess I would agree if it's a duplex owner-owned, then they would not. But if it's not owner-owned, and I don't know how many duplexes we have, but to me, it would seem like they should be falling into this regulation.
Councillor Nagy.
So just to speak to that, it's the type of building, right? It's not the ownership status, right? So like, I have single-family homes in my neighborhood that are rented. They get curbside recycling and collection. I have a 4-unit in my neighborhood that contracts with a private contractor who is unlicensed, who brings his trash to a neighboring community who is part of the MWAC partnership. And so there's a lot that's broken in our trash system because we haven't looked at it all as one piece in a long time. And again, Megan Bates has done a lot of this work through, I think, 3 different mayoral committees over a period of time. I concur that we do have to sit down and iron out all these pieces and fix them for good. So.
Further questions, comments from the yes, Councillor Harriman.
I guess since we're on the topic, so because the fee is in the policy and not in the ordinance, we're not voting on that fee tonight?
Correct.
The change in the fee that was proposed?
Correct. This is a first read, so we would bring it as part of March 18th agenda with the second read of this policy.
So I agree with including condos tonight, but as far as the fee, I know I spoke in support of it before, but it's been brought to my attention that I know Deputy Director Bates mentioned trying to wean some of the apartments off the program because of the cost, but wouldn't wouldn't apartments in a dense downtown neighborhood be the least expensive to pick up from? So it seems like increasing the cost for apartments, but somebody who's the only house on 2 miles of road out in the middle of the woods, they're still getting their trash picked up, and they're not paying an extra fee. So it seems like we need to really sit down before we raise this fee. We need to sit down and figure out what some other counselors have mentioned, how we want to structure this program, just because it seems like that's going to hit the poorest parts of town the hardest.
Councilors, if we can talk about the amendment that's on the floor right now. Councilor Najing, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that this is an onerous way in order to have this conversation, so we need to figure out how we can have this conversation separate from this.
I would suggest as soon as we vote on this amendment. Madam Clerk, I believe we are ready to vote on the amendment. Can you please read it back to us and call the vote?
Sure, the amendment will do two things. It would remove the strikeout line through the word condominiums, which is number 7 on your page. So it would maintain the word condominiums and add the word business in front of it. Counselor from Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Amendment passed by a vote of 7-0.
Excellent, thank you. We're now, we're still here. Yes, we're now back with the main motion. Councilor Chittum, did you have something?
I simply wanted to remind us all that we're back on the main motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. I'm not good for much, but here I am, so. Councilor Sol, did you have something?
Nope.
Further questions or comments about the main motion? We are now going to public comment for the main motion. And back to the council. Anything further, Director, Deputy Director?
Nope, we're good.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 4?
3.
Thank you.
Item number 3, public hearing and first passage for amendments to the Streets and Sidewalks Ordinance regarding the prohibition of placing grass on streets and sidewalks. Requested action that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 1, in general, Section 66-1, definitions, and Section 66-4, placing substances on highway, duty to remove, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and to continue the public hearing to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Sol, seconded by Councilor Roy. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. This is a public safety issue that's brought up by Councilor Roy previous to this, so we wanted to bring it to you to address this before the mowing season starts. There's been some discussion about enforcement as well, so I think adding this into the definition helps establish clear direction that we can then put out through social media and messaging out there to remind people not to blow their mowing clippings and other yard debris into the gutter line, the curb line, the right-of-way, and keep our sidewalks and our streets safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorcyclists. So we're here tonight to start that process.
Councilor Sol.
I fully support this amendment. I think it's really important. I see it all the time, not just blowing it, but literally taking their lawnmower bags and just dumping them on the street. So I totally support this amendment.
I think it's great.
Councillor Najin.
Yeah, I think it's very good in theory. My question is always, what's the enforcement mechanism, right? End of the day, do we call code enforcement or the police department or public works if our neighbor has decided to blow his grass on the, and so that's a piece I just have a question about, because ultimately we have a lot of ordinances that are sometimes not enforced or not consistently enforced. I do agree with this 100% though, because I can tell you right now that it's super dangerous when someone drives through a bunch of leaves, even on a bicycle for that matter. Never mind a motorcycle.
Councillor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a time limit? We're going to establish, like he's talking about, how do we police it or control it? Somebody drives by my house, I just mowed my grass. Some of it's on the street, I always blow it over and down by the driveway, but I may go eat lunch. So if somebody's making a chance to correct it or willing to correct it, who's going to be the law enforcement or on that? You could have neighbors who just don't like neighbors, and all of a sudden you got everybody calling everybody when the guy's cutting the grass, and when he gets done, he's going to go blow it off the street. The reality is, that I just want to have some clarity there, and it is a safety issue. I drive a bike as well, but what's the fine line going to be?
So if you want me to address that now?
Sure.
Okay. Realistically, Public Works, we do not do enforcement. So we do education. Our crews will see something, say something, advise, but ultimately, depending on what's going on and the level, code enforcement does issue citations and violations, as well as PD. So I think it depends on the infraction. In addition to that, being unsafe, dumping clippings into gutter line and storm drains is also a storm drain violation, in which case we are an MS4 community, heavily regulated under DEP guidelines, so we're trying to stay compliant in our brooks, streams, and rivers. So there's multiple avenues there. It's similar to dumping oil and antifreeze in a catch basin. So it's pollution, it's being defined, and it's not allowed. Some of the timing nuances, I don't have those specifics for you tonight, but we would hope that neighbors would be good neighbors and afford people some time.
Yes, Councillor Gallant.
Quick follow-up. I don't really expect you to know. I guess it's maybe more for the administrator about when we make a change here, how does it get passed on to the other departments so that they know this is now something new? I'm sure, I don't know what the rules are, so I'm just curious. I think it's important and they should be taken care of, but we have a lot of commercial people out there who don't care. If you go out there anytime, you can see it blown up. East Avenue is terrible. Commercial guys who cut the grass of people, it's on the sidewalks on the road and they leave. So I'm just curious on how that's going to be looked at.
Once we have the second reading, if this passes, we have weekly meetings that we share this information with them. So they'll be aware of it, and code enforcement would be the ones. Code enforcement if someone isn't mowing the lawn, and I don't recall the certain height off the top of my head, but code enforcement are the ones that enforce that. So this would be a similar enforcement for code enforcement.
Thank you.
Councillor Chittum.
Thank you. I do not ride a motorcycle, so I cannot speak to the safety issues of grass clippings in the road. I do think, however, that the inclusion of this language where it is in section 66.4 bends and alters the meaning of the original intent of that section completely in an effort to try and find a place to put this prohibition. And I'm not generally in favor of creating more ordinances because they create more need for enforcement, which creates more need for enforcement officers, which creates greater demands on the budget. So in general, I'm not in favor of ordinances like this. However, I defer to my colleagues' comments about safety on motorcycles, and I certainly would not want to see anybody hurt. In going through all of our ordinances, I was unable to find any provision in the City Code of Ordinances that prohibits littering. And it seems to me that this more is a littering issue. I looked under streets and sidewalks, I looked under general offenses, I looked under nuisances. And I've come to the conclusion that littering is not addressed locally, but rather through state statute. And I wonder whether or not it might be important for us to have a littering ordinance. Having just said that I don't like ordinances, so you can see the complexity of what happens up here. I'm not in favor of putting this in an ordinance which originally was intended to protect the hooves of horses. If you read carefully how this language was put together, it was to protect horses against sharp objects in the streets, and now we're completely altering the sense of that. I would far prefer us to create a new section, even if it deals specifically with lawn clippings, organic matter, and address the issues that Director Gagne has talked about as well. It's not only a safety issue, it's an environmental issue. Because that's the first thing that popped into my mind, is seeing all of this wash down the gutter into the storm drains, and then we're spending more money to suck it out of the storm drains, or we're letting it go into the river and rot. So I'm in favor of this in concept, but I am not in favor of putting it under section 66.4. Thank you.
Councillor Najin. Councillor Roy.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. Appreciate that. One of the things I want to remind everybody is trying to be a good neighbor. You've got kids in neighborhoods. You've got people riding skateboards, bikes. You've got motorized bikes right now. If somebody stops on grass clippings, they're going to slide, and they might not be expecting that. You've got kids that could get hurt with this. So just trying to be a good neighbor is what I'm trying to do. That's where I'm going with this. So.
We are now, yes, Councillor Glant.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilor Chittum. However, I think we should push this forward so we have something on the books until we readdress it, and when we readdress it, then we can fix it. Thank you.
We're now heading to public comment for this agenda item.
Matthew Egren, Ward 4. Will this same ordinance apply to city staff, city vehicles, like the sidewalk plow that dumped a trash bag in front of my house into the snowbank? It didn't come from my house. It came from somewhere up the street. But I cleaned out the city drain because there was a trash bag that was dumped in my yard, in my driveway. You know, he had to have known he dropped it. He just continued on through.
Further public comment? Back to the council. Are you too good? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
No.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're on item number 4.
Item number 4, order approving the disposition of 170 No Name Pond Road and 176 No Name Pond Road. Requested action to approve the order approving the disposition of 170 No Name Pond Road and 176 No Name Pond Road.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councillor Chittum.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Sol. Administrator O'Malley. Are you kicking us off, or?
Yeah, this is tax-acquired property that the city has had for, since I believe 2020, 2021. We use Du Bois Realty, who the city has a contract with to market this property, and we're presenting to you the highest offer that we received for these two lots of land out on No Name Pond is 176 and 170 No Name Pond Road. I believe the folks here who have made the offer are present. No?
We don't know, we made it an offer. We did make the offer, that's why we're here to.
Okay. So I apologize. We are making the recommendation that we accept the offer from Holly, Karen, Lynn Ford. I apologize, folks. I thought you would have seen the agenda. It's all written there that this is why we're here tonight. Okay. And that was through the Du Bois Realty that this was the highest offer that we received.
Thank you, Administrator O'Malley. Question, yes, Councilor Chittum.
Yes, two questions. Included in the packet is a holographic addendum to number 10. I'd like to know what that's all about, who drafted it, is part of the purchase and sale agreement or part of the offer. And also, the last page is a purchase and sale agreement naming David Chamberlain. Who is David?
Staff
Chamberlain?
included some of the second best offer just to show that this was the highest offer that we received.
Okay, is the holographic addendum part of the second offer?
When you say holographic addendum, which?
I'm talking about addendum to number 10.
The handwritten?
Holographic means handwritten, yes.
Okay.
That's what the word means. Buyer's warrant, they intend to join, I'm sorry, I have new eyes. I have to put my glasses on.
To join both parcels into a single lot?
Right.
I
Is that
recorded
part
the-
of this purchase and sale agreement?
Yes.
Where
And
does,
and Holly, I think it's Holly is here, if you'd like to stand up and explain your
Case.
holographic addendum.
I'm not sure what you're referring to unless it's, oh, this is, okay, I thought this had been printed up, but basically, my sister and I, and this is my sister Lynn Ford, we are both residents of Auburn, but we did grow up in Lewiston and have a vested interest in Lewiston's future. My daughter and her family live here. I have 3 grandchildren in Lewiston schools. My daughter is a full-time ed tech in special ed at the Raymond Geiger Elementary School. Her fiance is an executive for an interstate pest control company. Between the two of them, they make well in excess of $100,000 a year. They have been working for years to accumulate the funds to come up with a down payment. And as they approach that goal, housing prices take a jump and interest rates escalate. So they're very frustrated because they feel they've worked hard for the American dream. It's a carrot at the end of a stick that grows ever longer just before it is within their reach. And my grandchildren are in the 2nd, 6th, and 7th grades. My sister and I were blessed to have parents that could afford we had a modest, brand new, post-World War II, 2 bedrooms, single bath, ranch home on Shank Street, which at the time with 11 houses was on the far outskirts of Lewiston. We lived out in the country, we thought. But we were blessed with a wonderful childhood because our parents could provide a home for us where we had a cat, a dog, a garden, the things that are all part and parcel of the American dream. And I certainly expected my daughter to have the same. I was fortunate and able to provide that for her. My sister had the same. My daughter, I'd like to see my grandchildren have that same opportunity, and I know they are not alone. Since Lynn and I moved to Lewiston to be closer to my grandchildren, we have observed Auburn generate building permits for dozens and dozens of rental units. And I was hoping to actually bring my grandchildren into the Auburn school system. So I was looking for rental apartments for them. All these new units are either studios, single bedroom, or 2-bedroom. They are not designed for families. They are not designed to be a stepping stone for a family to get a home of their own. And I remember when we were growing up, every Christmas Eve, we watched It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, your name again?
I beg your pardon?
Your name again, I'm
Oh,
sorry?
Holly Kerr.
Holly Kerr.
I'm one of the co-offerees.
Yes, yes. And so, I'm sorry, Councilor Chittum, what question did you have about this?
My question is, where does this fit? Is this part of the commitment that the buyers are intending to impose upon themselves if this purchase goes through? And I guess if the answer to that is yes, My question to the buyers would be, why are you limiting yourselves with these? This is not something that the city is asking you to do, and you're putting some pretty severe restraints on the use of this property, and I'm wondering why.
Because I feel it's the right thing to do.
You're free to do that without committing yourself in this purchase and sale agreement.
Well, I wanted the city to know of our commitment and that we intended it to be more than just words on a piece of paper, so that we were willing to abide by a provision that no permits be issued unless they were in compliance with this overall plan. And also, I would like to point out that the sales price that we offered was very specific to the penny. I asked our realtor to look up the exact amount that the city of Lewiston was owed for the back taxes on both of those properties. It was very important to my sister and myself that the city of Lewiston be made whole for what they had lost. And it's our goal to have this be a property that generates income for the city through tax revenue, and hopefully becomes a model for other developers to provide an opportunity for new families, young families, retiring families, to get into the housing market. The packet that I submitted with our offer was a plan from Highland Greens down in Topsom. It's a retirement community. The starting price for a home in Highland Greens is $900,000. That's beyond the reach of the average person. So that's our hope. That's what we'd like to do. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your sentiment and your eloquent speech. You will be neighbors of mine on No Name Pond Road.
Oh, great.
We hope that doesn't change your mind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's one for you. I have no further questions, but I would like to move along because I don't think there's any question in the council's mind as to the outcome of this vote.
Thank you, Councillor Chittum, for indulging me. Further questions from the council? We're now going to public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council. Whoa. Madam, yes, Councillor Longchamps.
I would just like to say thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you for wanting to put more housing up. We definitely need it. Thank you.
Councillor Najin.
I would like to echo that sentiment. I think that the dream of home ownership and for people making average incomes in the region or even the country at this point is very difficult. And since you've met the unofficial head of the unofficial HOA, I think you'll have some good neighbors there. So.
Councillor Roy.
Thank you. I just want to echo what they said too. Thank you very much for being good neighbors. That putting your good foot forward and just trying to be a good citizen. So I appreciate that.
And to be absolutely clear, Councillor Chittum and his wife are absolutely lovely people. So, further questions or comments from the council? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
I'm not going to be the only one to say no, but yes. How's that?
Motion passed a vote of 7-0.
I would.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We are now up to item number 5.
Item number 5, update regarding options for the senior tax relief program. This is an informational update. No council vote is required.
Thank you for being here. Director Healy, please kick us off.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Can you pull the mic a little
Sure.
closer to you?
Yep.
For our folks at home.
Okay. I think you all have in front of you a draft of an ordinance that I created for Lewiston Senior Property Tax Relief. We did have it reviewed by the city attorney, And he came back with a couple of modifications that are required in order for us to comply with state statute. One is that we have to include renters, not just property owners, but renters as well. And we have to consider taxes and rent paid as a percentage of household income. Obviously, when I drafted this, we were trying to target property owners in general, but the requirement at the state level is that we include renters. With that being said, I know we had tossed around the idea of approximately $1 million. I think, given the addition of renters, we could be up around 3 million, would be my guess. And then, of course, we also would include some people that have incomes higher than 70, 80,000 because their property taxes could be more than 4% of their household income. So I think we'd be expanding this program well beyond what the thought was originally.
Yes, Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that, Director Healy. How do other communities get by with the ordinances that they have passed upon which you modeled the draft before us?
They included renters.
Oh, they did?
They did.
Okay.
And I didn't research how much money goes back to renters, but I'm sure it's a fair amount.
Okay.
Yep.
The state, as many of us already know, has a property tax fairness credit program. This is a difficult subject to speak on because while all of us up here are interested in reducing the tax burden on all of our residents and businesses, reducing the burden on some necessitates increasing it on others. It's a balloon, and when you push the balloon in on one side, it swells out somewhere else. The numbers that have been presented here are basically plucked from air numbers. We could make them anything we want. We could say, for example, that we want to provide this tax abatement or tax fairness credit to anyone who qualifies under whatever criteria we establish, and the level of abatement would be $10. We could afford that, but would it be meaningful? No. This is a much larger issue that I'm appreciative that it's been brought before us, but it does beg the question, how are we going to equitably create a program that treats all taxpayers fairly? I'm concerned particularly about the age, and believe me, I qualify for the old age. However, I'm concerned about the 42-year-old single mother who is just barely able to pay her rent. And make no mistake that rent is a form of property tax. The money that is paid for renting your apartment, some of that money flows to the city to provide the services to the building in which that apartment is located. So including renters is, in my book, not only fair, but according to your memo and the city attorney's memo, a legality. It's a complex issue, and I'm not prepared for us to be taking any action on it until we've done some deep and comprehensive study, particularly looking at the impact it's going to have on the taxpayers who would not qualify for a program like this.
I think one thing we could do is promote the property tax fairness credit better. A lot of seniors don't realize, they say, well, I don't file an income tax return. You don't have to. You can submit an addendum, just the addendum. And I think if we got that out to the public, that may help a lot of people. Exactly.
This is it right here, and if we could get the camera to focus on that. This is the property tax fairness credit issued and administered by the state of Maine. They've done the heavy lifting in determining who qualifies, what the income levels are, what percentage of income is paid for rent. All that stuff is done through the state, and it is a credit on your income tax, and if you do not pay income tax, my understanding is that you will be issued a check for that amount that you are qualified for. So the state does this program, and I would advocate that we look very carefully at that before we start trying to develop an administrative program of our own. Thank you.
Councilor Sol.
Thank you for putting all this together. Adding in that piece, which it's fair with the rent, but it does enlarge the whole process. And we were concerned about the $1 million that you brought to us, where we were going to find it. I would love to be able to say yes to a program like this, but not without any help from the state or some grants or something, because I can't see asking the taxpayers to foot that bill.
And that was part of the memo that came back to us, as the city attorney said this would be on the city. There's no assistance from the state.
Well, even without the renters, it's a hard choice to make, because that's a big ask of the rest of the city when a lot of us already feel the taxes are pretty hard to pay ourselves. So I have a lot of thought to do. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Najin?
So a lot of the points that were brought up already are very valid, and one is with a tax base that hasn't grown, right? If we have a program where we defer taxes for some residents, we are requiring other residents to pay more of that share. There's also the question, though, that, and I just want to get a feel for this, and maybe you don't know it, maybe it's somebody can answer it from another section, but if it's an owner-occupied residence that's not paying their tax, do we evict them?
That's a good question. I don't believe that is our process or our policy. I don't know if Administrator O'Malley would have an answer for that.
My feeling on this is that ultimately, if we can work with folks who are behind on their taxes, in order to, one of the problems that we have in our community right now is people cannot downsize in the housing that they live in at the moment because there's no other housing, right? And so there's a challenge with like let's say your house, you can sell it for $300,000, right? But you can't live in the community anymore because there's no place for you to live. And so I would like to see a program where we can make sure that people are made whole if they do need to downsize. And I also don't ever want to see a situation where somebody's like kicked to the curb if they're a senior with no income coming in.
So we have not evicted anyone. I was just speaking with Finance Director in my memory, that we try to work with folks. We do payment plans for water. We do it for a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of the properties that we talked about, agenda item 4, that was, property that we ended up taking, some land, but that's a whole process. There is a state law, and as Holly mentioned, that she wanted to make sure the city was whole. Anytime if we do seize a property, when we sell it, we just get back the taxes that we got, and then we give the money to the estate or to the family or to the individual who owned that. So we're not making any type of profit off of that. We're just making ourselves, for the back taxes.
So maybe we could come up with a policy that would be like clear, that would be outlined well for exactly what we're talking about, right? I think that there's an unofficial policy already in place. But I think the challenge, again, is that, like we have, I can indicate housing in my neighborhood where you've got a single-family home that 1,500 to 2,700 square feet. The owner is occupying 400 square feet of it. It can't keep up with maintenance on the building even, and has a hard time paying their property tax and their medical bills and all of the other things that come in. And so ultimately, like, I'm worried about those folks, you know what I mean? And I want to make sure that we have some provisions that won't, basically kick people to the curb. And another part that I was looking at and thinking about is like, how do we verify who's living in a place? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it like a honor system type thing?
It is an honor system.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So those are the things I just wanted to put out there.
Councillor Gallant.
On a somewhat related point we're making, we do realize the state is not a business. So if they're giving out money, we're giving out money. So everybody keeps saying the state can do this and the state can do that. Well, that means we can do it. So passing it off to the state, the program he's talking about, is a good deal, but we're paying for that good deal. Just make sure everybody understands that it's not free. Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the council at this time? We're now heading to public comment for this agenda item. And we're now back to the council. Certainly we have seniors who are struggling, and, the cost of housing has risen, the cost of a lot of things have risen. Unfortunately, I'm really concerned about the cost that, as already mentioned, the cost that this would impose on the city. We're looking at an extremely tough budget this year. Administrator O'Malley, I understand the county budget went up, correct?
Yes, I believe it went up 14.5%.
And Councillor Chittum, I think you had mentioned before the cost for, was it the bus was going up?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the numbers, but we have issued a new contract to operate the Purple Bus, and the cost of that has escalated. That's a 5-year contract, and I'm afraid I can get back to you with the percentages, but it's a significant increase.
Thank you, both. Yeah, I'm just, and with the step increases for our hardworking staff, the pressures on the budget this year are going to be monumental, and we just do not, with all due respect to Councillor Chittum, we don't even have the money to give everyone $10. It's going to be extremely, extremely tight this year. Further comments or Councillor Najin, yes.
So I did want to acknowledge that you've done a lot of hard work on this, and we would greatly appreciate you bringing this before us. And I also know that there are still concerns in the community for folks that are worried about being behind on their taxes and having this piece that they need to cover. So the first piece, I just want to acknowledge that thank you for this, because it's not, I think, it still matters, right? And there's a piece here where when the evaluations are done and people actually get their bills, then I think they'll have a better understanding of what exactly that means, And so, again, very much appreciated. So thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Roy.
Thank you. I too want to thank you for all the hard work you've done. I am concerned about, somebody who's lived in their house for 50 years and paid their taxes for 50 years and now is not going to be able to afford their taxes, right? So I think for me, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to seek out some input and maybe come back with a few things, and maybe we can tweak this. How did the state do this? Like, did the state include people like we have to include?
They did not include renters in the property tax stabilization program. They did not include renters. So I was kind of caught off guard by that part of statute because they didn't seem to follow it themselves.
Okay. Shocking. So again, I want to.
Take it like it is.
I want to go back to the drawing board a little bit and maybe rethink this, but I appreciate the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments from councillors? Anything further, Director?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Madam
Thank you for
Clerk,
the work
please-
that you're doing. Yeah.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
No.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for this information, Director Healy. We are now up to our second public comment period. Should there be further public comment from those in attendance? And our second public comment period is now closed. We are now up to reports and updates from councillors. Councillor Najin.
Just reporting back on the Citizen Advisory Council for the Community Development Block Grant appropriations for this year. We've had 3 meetings so far. We've gone through the requests from nonprofits in the community. We'll be deciding shortly on those pieces, as well as 3 infrastructure projects. 2 are from Public Works, and 1 was from the YWCA. One thing I would just like to bring forward is 2 things. One, our new community development manager, is excellent, a wonderful addition to the staff upstairs. And two, we've had a couple of issues with just having enough attendance and quorum. And so I think we're seeing this a lot with other committees as well. It might be one of those things where support for the people that we've not, ultimately, like, we appoint people, and if they don't show up at the meetings, it's hard to have a quorum, and it's hard to make decisions. And also, they're not recognized for the work that they are doing too. Like, that we don't bring the committees to give a report to us. It just feels very disjointed at this point, because, I mean, Tuesday, Monday, there were 3 people there. And you know, we can't make a decision with 3 people. So maybe it's about the appointments, maybe it's about the way that we're engaging with the committees. However it is, I think we need to improve that process, because we're asking people to volunteer their time, and they're helping the city, you know, so.
Thank you for that. I will follow up with Director Libby. Yes, Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. The Senior Advisory Council will be meeting next Wednesday. If anybody wants to come and see what we're doing, 3 o'clock here at the City Hall.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. The school committee has met a couple times since our last council meeting. Last week, we had a retreat or workshop on school committee, some of the policies that apply to the school committee itself and the members themselves. We talked a lot about the subcommittees for the school committee, and if there are potential ways that some could be combined, and some ideas for a couple potential new ones. Last night, we also had a meeting where we approved the Administrators Association contract. So that's one of the several bargaining units that the school department has. We also approved a field trip request from the JROTC program. They're going to Maine Maritime Academy in, I believe it's March, for a cadet leadership challenge, which sounds like an interesting thing. There was a whole schedule of events and activities there. And the other update from the school is that we're starting the budget process. The budget will be introduced tomorrow evening at a workshop, and we're meeting every Monday and Wednesday for the rest of the month to go over the school budget.
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to report that the 911 committee, which meets monthly, met since our last council meeting. For all apparent intents and purposes, it was a normal meeting. The executive director of the 911, Tim Hall, was given a glowing review by the members of the committee. One of the things that we are talking about is the relocation of 911 call center from the Central Fire Station on Minot Avenue to 85 Park Street. I personally am running out of time to try and find alternative sources. I would love to see 85 Park Street turned into commercial property that would generate tax revenue for the city. But we are so far down the road of installing the Lewiston, Auburn, Poland 911 center into 85 that it's extremely unlikely that will not happen. We're under a fairly tight deadline because Auburn has indicated it's removing the Central Fire Station and therefore the 911 facilities by June, I believe. Is that correct, Administrator O'Malley?
June of
2027.
Yes,
26.
26 next year.
So the time is running out to do anything about that. There is still, however, the question of having 2 911 centers for Androscoggin County, one for the entire county, except Lewiston, Auburn, and Poland, and one for Lewiston, Auburn, and Poland. And work is being done to try and figure out how we can reconcile that redundancy, particularly since as the administrator pointed out, the tax bill from the county came due at $4.4 million, and that includes costs to operate a 911 dispatch center, which we do not utilize. That's my report from 911. I also want to say that we are pulling together a strategy session for the City Council on March 22nd. That's a Saturday, tentatively slated to begin at 10 o'clock in Callahan Hall. I've asked my fellow councilors to come up with ideas for discussion as to where we focus our energies for the remainder of the year. And I'm also going to request that public comment be allowed, but public discussion not be allowed. And I would like the council's weighing in on that, just a thumbs up or thumbs down, whether you feel that the public should be given the opportunity to comment to us during our, quote, retreat to talk about strategy for the rest of the year. That's a question.
Yeah, Councilor Glant, did you want to chime in on that?
I don't have a problem if they listen. I have a problem if they chime in. We only have 4 hours. 25 people show up, we'll get nothing done. If we're trying to do something as a team, as a group, then maybe we can have a follow-up, and whatever we decide, they can comment on. But we could eat up all of our time simply just having people stand at the podium 3 minutes at a pop and not accomplish anything. So I appreciate them being there, and they can contact us, but I don't think they should speak.
Councilor Roy.
Thank you. What I would suggest to everybody listening out there is to probably email your counselors or email us. Give us some heads up on some things that you really want us to look at and your ideas. So that's what I would say.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing as Councilor Roy. If people could, now that this has been announced and people know about it, if they could email or call us, I think that'll be a more efficient use of our workshop time there.
Councilor Najin.
To reiterate what everybody else is saying, I agree with that, but I also think that it would not be completely out of line to allow, for instance, a 15-minute public comment period, right? Perhaps at the beginning or end of the session, and I believe this is going to be one of probably a few, right? Like, so ultimately, I just think it's important that anything that we're allowing the public to attend is not just behind a plate of glass, so to speak. There should be some engagement level, and I completely agree that to Councilor Gallant's point that if we allow a back and forth, nothing's going to get done. But like I said, if we could possibly limit comments to maybe 15 minutes at some point.
Yeah, so obviously for this meeting, we can set the rules, ourselves in terms of like what is the total amount of time allotted to public comment. And, we do 3 minutes here, but we could certainly set some other time for this meeting. I would agree with most of the councilors. Obviously this is a public meeting, so people can be in attendance and watch the meeting. And I mean, I would argue that the residents have a lot of ways to give us feedback. They can talk to all of us individually, as they are often doing. Email us, call us. You can, come to council meetings and speak during public comment, like we had people here today. And I think just an efficient use of time, just to, obviously the public will be there because it's a public meeting, but I think to set up a whole public comment session is going to be slightly unnecessary, simply because we're not going to be deciding anything. And when we do decide something, it'll be an agenda item, and people will be able to comment on that agenda item. Yeah, that's my take. Councilor Gallant.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree. The only reason I don't think I'd do it, Councilman Najin, is if we have 20 people and you can only have 5 speak, who are you going to pick? So that wouldn't be fair. So I think none is better than selecting. And I would like any councilor who receives something from a constituent that they share with everyone, so we have a good idea when we get to the plate, when I'm not sitting there with 5 things and the first time you hear it, is it while I'm there? It'd be good to have it in advance, because we may have some commonality between the constituents and what they're going to send to us.
That's a great idea. Now, I'll recognize you in just one second, Councilor Roy. And I would argue that, myself along with the councilors here, we're extremely open to to public feedback, and all the councilors here are incredibly responsive to our constituents. So I appreciate that, and residents do have a voice, and we do listen to you. Councilor Roy.
Thank you very much. One of the things I wanted to, thank you very much.
When you are able, Councilor Roy, please continue.
It was brought to my attention that from a constituent that my phone was not working at one point, and I was like, no, I never got any voicemails or whatever. I did find out from a period of like January, the first week in January, till probably a week and a half ago, my phone did not work. So now my phone does work, so you can reach out to me by phone too. So I just want to make sure that people do know that.
Please wait until after the meeting. Councilor Najin.
So do you have a sense, Councilor Chittum, from the body at this point?
I do. I don't agree with it, but I respect the will of the council. So it appears that there will be no public comment period during this strategy session, but I encourage anyone who has any thoughts about the direction, the strategy, the tactics, the approach that the city wants to be, that you want the city council to be taking for the remainder of its term, get in touch with us through comment at
public comment at lewistonmaine.gov. That goes to
and that reaches all of us.
Yes.
Or reach out to each one of us individually. So please, we are all open. We are all ears. Thank you.
We seeing no further reports and updates. Councilor Harriman.
I just wondered if we could get an update on, I know you updated us last meeting about the public safety meeting, but I feel like that's a important, or a public safety committee, but I feel like that's an important thing to keep on at the front of our minds. So I wondered if we could get another update on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for the reminder. I met with our future new city administrator, Brian Cainrath. We had a great conversation. I'll be circling back around with co-chair Abdikadir Nagay, and then hopefully I will have another update at the next meeting, if not before. Councilor Najin.
So just technically, the ad hoc committee doesn't actually exist at this point because it's expired. So I think maybe when we're talking about like the committee involvements and how everything's like kind of shaping up, maybe this is one of the things that we could talk about in our session.
Mr. Mayor, if we could just clarify, the council did vote to extend that. In
we
its
did.
original order, it sunsetted, I can't remember when, December 31st or something like that, but the council did vote to extend it.
Okay.
If the audience could please refrain from speaking at this time. Yes, Councilor Najin.
Still, we're having some problems, I think, with like our committees overall, like attendance, quorum, all of these pieces. And maybe this is something that we bring up and discuss inside that planning session to figure out how to allow our citizens to participate in the process in a way that's meaningful and then also transparent and furthers the city, because ultimately we do need some feedback from the community at this point with the Public Safety Committee. I think it's super important. We need to figure out how to move that forward, right?
Wholeheartedly agree.
Same thing with, we're looking at the trash ordinances. There's probably some type of need for some type of either working group, task force committee, whatever it might look like, but piece like that, and so I just wanted we could work those things out, I think, in at least one of the planning sessions. So
I can also follow up with the clerk offline to see where we are with signed paperwork for the committees.
Mm-hmm.
Further reports and updates before we move to new business. We are now up to new business. Councilor Najin.
So the only thing I just want to mention, we seem to just make the news in ways that are incredibly uncomfortable. And one of them was the dump Trump vandalism that occurred downtown. It was, I want to comment on this for a couple of reasons. One, that's city property. And I think our community has gotten to the point where the detritus of past industrial grades, like we just drive past it and we don't even think about it. That's an interior wall of Cowan Mill that's still standing. And, you know, at the end of the day, that was the quickest I think we've ever replied to any type of graffiti in this city, because there's graffiti that has literally been up in my neighborhood since I moved into it. And so it would be nice if we could take a stand to deal with some of these basically vandalism acts in our community in order to clean them up. You know, in all honesty, I know there was a big outrage because, you know, the dump part was covered up and Trump remained for a day, but like, in all honesty, it probably should have been the Trump part covered and then said dump, because that's what it actually is right there right now. It's a pile of trash that we need to pick up. And so the reason why I'm bringing this forward is because a lot of people were concerned about it. And we responded to a situation where we actually like quickly took care of the situation. We could do that in other places. We could deal with the graffiti in our city. We could just do it. But anyway.
I would invite the public or counselors, if there's other graffiti that needs to be cleaned up, forward on to our Public Works Director, and I'm sure that they have sufficient paint at this point. Further comments or further new business from the council? Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, can we just
yes.
remind everyone, we have a workshop next Tuesday, the 11th, at 6 o'clock. We will be presenting the preliminary budget, and that will kick off our Tuesday, Thursday meetings for the next foreseeable future until we progress through this budget.
Thank you, Administrator O'Malley. Yes, Councilor Chittum.
Mr. Mayor, I thought next Tuesday was when we started our 4-month vacation.
Well, sorry to inform you, Councilor Chittum, we'll be here. Thank you. We'll be adjourning soon. Anything further, Administrator O'Malley?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Councilor Chittum.
Second.
Second by Councilor Najin. Thank you both. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Elvis is leaving the building. No, sorry. Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Lewiston. You all have a wonderful evening.
This is leaving the building.
Thank you very much.